I'm going to talk to you tonight about this thing called DevOps, and the subtitle is Transforming the Way You Think About IT. I don't know if that will actually, I don't know that I will actually transform the way you think about anything tonight, but we'll see. I should maybe stand on this side so that my microphone can pick me up also. So I'm Nathan Harvey. You can follow me on Twitter if you like, @NathanHarvey, but you have to misspell my name just like my dad did. Most other Nathans have a different spelling for their name. So a little bit about me. I am a technical community manager at OpsCode. If you've never heard of OpsCode, we're the company behind Chef. If you've never heard of Chef, we'll talk later. I'll tell you all about it. I'm the co-host of the Food Fight Show podcast. That's why I know so much about Google Hangouts, because we actually do this podcast via Google Hangouts, and then we strip out the audio and release that as a podcast. And while I'm speaking tonight, if I'm lucky, we're going to cross 100,000 downloads in our podcast, which is pretty exciting. I mean, it's a bullshit number, but it's like a number that's round and got lots of zeros in it, and that's kind of cool. So people listen to me. In fact, you're sitting here tonight listening to me, which is also awesome. I'm a meetup organizer. I organize DevOps DC, so if you ever want to talk about this DevOps stuff, come on down to DC. We'll talk about it there. I also organize a Mongo DC meetup group. If you want to talk about MongoDB in the DC area, come on down. We'll talk about it. So my job now is technical community manager, which is like a bullshit job, and I have no more street cred when it comes to technology, but I used to do web operations. So I used to work at this company down in Northern Virginia called Custom Ink. If you like t-shirts, you'll like Custom Ink. So you go online, you design t-shirts, we print them off, and ship them out to you. Now I know what you're thinking to yourself. Oh, you used to work at a t-shirt shop, so like I've been to the beach and they like iron those things on, and like how does that give you technology cred? So Custom Ink probably shipped about 14 million t-shirts last year, and so I ran all of our web operations, which existed in our own data centers and off in the cloud and all kinds of stuff. So that's me. And what I want to know is, who are you? Are you developers? Your hand, developers. Yeah. Okay. System administrators. Yeah. Good. 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 How many of you are DevOps? Okay. Cool. Cool. Any of you business people? Yeah, come on. Executives? Any executives in the house? No executives in the house? All right, so those of you that said you were DevOps, I don't know if you're using that word properly, because like you can't be a DevOps. It's not a thing. What is DevOps? DevOps is a cultural and professional movement. So I would argue that you cannot have, say, the role of DevOps engineer. You cannot have a department that is your DevOps department. Now, Theo will argue back with me and say, like, yeah, dude, you say that, but there are huge companies that are doing DevOps-like things, and they call those group of people over there the DevOps department. And guess what? They're doing DevOps. And so you're wrong, but I would say he's wrong. And then we'd get in a fist fight, and everyone would go home drunk, and it would be fun. So this is
definitely get $100,000 for fistfight.com.
I'm afraid it's already taken. And yeah. All right, now we have to put an explicit tag on our YouTube stream for tonight. So DevOps is all about development and operations working together. So long ago in my history, when I first got into tech, the first job I had was at a supply chain software company. And so we would go around and help manufacturers like do better with managing their supply chain. And one of my favorite stories from that time in my life was about this cereal maker that we went to, and we were helping them, sort of automate all of their processes and so forth, and their supply chain. And we talked to them about, what do your goals look like? What are your objectives? And the plant manager had an objective. Every quarter, he would get a bonus based on the tonnage of cereal that his department produced. So at the end of the quarter, he had a choice. He could make like crisp rice cereal, or he could make Raisin Bran. And remember, he's going to get paid based on the tonnage of cereal he produces in that quarter. He doesn't care at all about like what customers are buying, what's stocking up on the shelves. All he cares about is, I'm going to get paid more. So forget the crispy rice cereal. I'm making Raisin Bran all day long. Like the last 4 weeks of the quarter, we're just making Raisin Bran. And then I win, right? And that really, if you think about that, it's a lot like development and operations, right? Development's job is to build cool-ass, slick new features using the hottest, newfangled technology, right? And deliver that out to customers as quickly as possible. That's what the business is asking for. That's what they're being incented on. An operations job, historically, is keep the site up, keep it performant, right? And the way that operations does that is we say, go away, I'm not taking your new stuff, no. because if I keep everything the same, my stuff is good, I get paid at the end of the quarter. And developers are like, man, this sucks. I got to get my stuff out so I can get paid at the end of the quarter. So DevOps, to an extent, is really about aligning objectives and getting development and operations working towards the same goal. And that goal is like understanding what the business is after, and more importantly, what the customers of the business are after, and getting them to work towards those same goals. DevOps, you also see folks that are doing the DevOps, right, that sprinkle the DevOps on their organization. They're leveraging ideas and processes from other industries. So when people talk about DevOps, you'll hear a lot about, say, the Toyota production system or lean manufacturing, right? They're trying to bring ideas that we've learned in other industries and trying to bring those into the way we manage IT. And it's all really about enabling the business and making it awesome for the business. So technology really has become the way that business engages with our customers. I think I read a statistic somewhere, and therefore this next thing I'm going to say must be truth, right? So Ryan mentioned earlier, like, fistfight.com would totally be an awesome domain. And that got me thinking about other domains that are maybe not things that I want to talk about, a little bit sketchy when you think about, what happens on the web. And it used to be, I think, that a lot of technology that happened on the web was driven by this industry that we don't like to talk about, at least not in a professional setting, right? But now I think the consumer-oriented web is really starting to drive where technology is going, and certainly where technology is going on the web. And so the thing that I think I read, or at least made up in my mind, either way, I'm the one standing up here, so it must be truth, right, is that the consumer-facing technology advances are now driving more and more relative to what maybe the other industries help determine what is on the web. So if you step back for a minute and think about this in a larger picture, right? Think about this from a globalization perspective. So it took 40 years for container ships to move 70% of all seaborne trade around the world, right? 40 years for that to happen. And think about that also from go back to the first people who were like, yeah, dude, we're gonna change the way shipping happens across the sea. We're going to create these containers that we can pick up and put onto a train, and then the train takes it off. And then you can take it off of the train and put it on a truck, and the truck takes it off. Well, what a crazy idea, especially for the first person to build the shipping thing that could receive those containers, so they could put those containers on boats. Hope to God that when my boat gets to the other side of the ocean, there's someone else who can actually receive these containers, right? So it only took 40 years. In the grand scheme of things, it's not really so long. But it only took less than that, right? 22 years for the internet to reach 78% penetration in North America. And then, of course, we all know that retail sales is totally moving online. And if you're not buying your stuff online, you're making decisions online. We see this across the world, or in everyday things that you do. Of course, the smartphones are growing tremendously, right? Lots of statistics to show you. So software is quickly becoming, or has become, the interface for consumption. So, the obvious example here is Amazon, right? They started off by shipping books. Now you don't even buy books from Amazon, you just buy electronic bits that you put on your Kindle, right? Oh, and because they had so much capacity, now they are, the internet is Amazon. The things are synonymous, right? The two are the same. It's happening, of course, in every industry: retail, insurance, banking. This is my favorite. Actually, this is maybe my wife's favorite, which therefore makes it my favorite also, right? Before I came up here tonight, I did grocery shopping, right? Two dudes showed up with a truckload of bags and dropped them in my kitchen. That was pretty fucking awesome. And Giant, I don't know, I can say this because we're all kind of regional here. We all know Giant and Safeway, right? I will not go into a Safeway anymore. Safeway used to be the place I would shop, but today when I go into the Safeway near my house, there's not even self-checkout. And they wait until the line gets 20 people deep, and then they're like, oh yeah, well we should let you go on break now because the lines aren't yet long enough, right? And so it's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. So Giant is where I go all the time, and not only can I do self-checkout, but I can walk around with my tricorder and scan all my shit, and then I just walk up and I'm done. But now it's even better, they'll bring it to me, or I can place my order and just show up in my car, and they load all that shit in the back of my car for me, I take it home and I eat it. It's awesome. So, Giant for the win. Of course, it also happens with taxis, right? Uber or Taxi Magic. You have to prefer Taxi Magic in this area because they're a local company, but Uber is pretty amazing. Have any of you Ubered before? Right, so do you know what it is? So it's super awesome. You like hit a button on your phone, and a black cart comes and picks you up, and they bring you water, and they bring you gum, and then when they get to where you told them that you wanted to go, you get out of the car and you walk away. And like the driver doesn't get angry with you because you're paying by a credit card, which taxi cabs happen to do on a regular basis, right? The Uber driver's like, yeah, dude, have a great day. See you later. And everything just happens seamlessly, and it's beautiful, and it's awesome. And I talked to like this guy. I was down in Atlanta, and this guy just moved over from Ethiopia. He spent like all this money to get this black car, and he absolutely loves it. Right? He's like, it's changing his life. It's changing his perspective. So it's awesome for the driver. It was awesome for me because like I hit the button on my phone, and the black car came and it took me to the airport, and I got gum and water, and it was free. Or nothing is free, right? It's included in the cost. But whatever, it was totally worth it. Now, there is a dark side to Uber, right? Like, Uber comes in to, like, D.C., and all the taxi cab people in D.C. are like, dude, that's against the law. And everyone's like, Uber! And then they're like, no, but you're taking business from me, and that's against the law. And they're like, Uber! And, but it's cool, right? So get your free gum and your water. It's all about technology, right? And technology is really driving this. So this customer-facing applications is really what's driving technology. At OpsCode, and I swear, like, I'm talking about DevOps, I'm talking about this culture thing, but this is not a pitch for OpsCode, but it does have some OpsCode slides baked into this, right? But so here's like the what, the how, the wow, the how, whatever. The result is the coded business, which basically means, right, software is taking over the world. We are, as system administrators, as developers, it is our job to make the world a better place. And in fact, we're doing it across a number of different places. So this has led to the rise of the coded business. So every business today is or will become a technology business. If technology is not driving your business, it is likely that your business isn't going to stick around for very long, or at least is not going to continue to grow or really outpace your competition. Companies must move faster in order to compete. And IT has moved from this cost center to a real business enabler, a change agent within the business. So I've definitely been at places before. In fact, I worked at a software company for a good number of years, and then we got bought by this big German company that was also a software company. My role was doing internal IT applications. So when we were like this small American company kind of startup thing, everyone was like, yeah, you're totally enabling the business, give us the tools that we need, and so forth. And then we got bought by this big German company, and I'm sure not all German companies are the same, but the CIO, his job was to cut costs. And he's like, oh, that thing you're doing, it costs us money. Shut it down. I'm like, no, but the business really likes it, and they use it all the time. It's like, no, shut it down, it costs money, right? Because IT was looked at as a cost center. And the only thing he worried about, again, back to aligning objectives, was how much money he saved, because that meant he got paid more. So that's bad. So we want this alignment. This alignment really enables business agility. Of course, it's happening across all industries, all markets. So DevOps. What the heck is this DevOps? Because that's what I'm here to talk about, right? So it is this professional and cultural movement. It has grown out of the leaders, the people that have been on the cutting edge of this transformation. You look at companies like Etsy, you look at companies like Netflix, like Amazon. This is where, like OmniTI. This is where you're seeing things and learning things about like how IT can and should be. And the business adaptations encapsulated in DevOps will eventually become ubiquitous, right? So this is the way of the future. Your business will eventually start to adopt these practices and ideas around DevOps, or maybe will kind of slow down in your growth. And it's not going to be like DevOps or die, and it happens tomorrow, right? Either you're going to adopt these things and continue to grow, or you're going to see this sort of slow decline
that you might not even notice. By the time you notice it, your competition's going to be way ahead, and it's going to be too late. Anybody remember Blockbuster, right? I mean, like, same kind of idea. All right, so what the heck is DevOps? A good friend of mine, a guy that I really respect, a couple years ago wrote a blog post that described DevOps, and he called it, or described it as HAMS. It's all about culture, automation, measurement, and sharing. So I'd like to just kind of break down HAMS and what that means. So how the hell do you build a DevOps culture? How do you build a culture at all? Right, so, or what are the characteristics of a DevOps culture? It's interesting because in a DevOps culture, development operations, they talk to each other, and more importantly, they listen to one another. I know that might be kind of an odd, like, thing. I don't know how your organization works, but development operations talking and listening to one another can be kind of crazy. Production and build metrics are available to everyone. So we're sharing all of this data internally, and we're making that available, and we can make decisions based on that. And the current infrastructure is documented. I mean, and again, this is like mind-blowing for some people, right? I'm the sysadmin, I handcrafted this server with love, it is beautiful, and I named it George, and nobody can touch it, and nobody can recreate it. No, instead, like, all of this is documented. We all have access to it. Our goal is to create awesome customer experiences. How do we really make the customer happy? How do we delight the customers? We focus on responsibility and accountability, not authority. Like, I don't care who's in charge. What I care about is how do we make the experience most awesome for the customer. And then this last bullet point here, you are responsible for your own uptime. So this comes back to, this is about development operations working together. No longer is it development says, oh, here's a bunch of code, throw it over the wall, operations, you go and run it, right? If that shit's going to break in production, the developer needs to know about it and needs to take responsibility for that. You see this in places like Google, where their SRE team says something like, all right, if you have a new application, it has to have a burn-in period in production, during which time it is the developer's responsibility to manage that in production. After some amount of time, operations will take over the care and feeding of this application, but if it starts to cause outages or starts to have a bunch of problems again, we're going to kick it back. It's going back into the development team, and they own that from that point forward.
It's like 12 months.
Yeah.
Longer.
Yeah, it's not like, for 2 days you had no outages. Sweet, I'll take that now. No. It's definitely some number of months. A DevOps culture is about respect, right? I might not like you, but I respect you, and it's cool. And maybe, crazy, maybe we go to lunch together, like once a month or something, right? Like, we can hang out. It doesn't have to, it's not about like, we're going to be social and we're going out every Friday night to get a bunch of beers, but maybe we go to lunch together once a month or something like this. We have respect for one another and respect for what each other does. And understand that we can learn from each other as well. And then there's also this trust thing, right? I have to trust that the developer isn't just trying to throw a bunch of crap over the wall to me so that he can, tick off his checkboxes of things he needs to get done this quarter. I have to trust that what he's really interested in or what she's really interested in is this awesome customer experience. And then I also have to trust that what I'm trusting in is not a lie, right? That they're not like pulling something on me. And then in addition to that, right, when we talk about automation, you have to trust the tools that you build to automate your infrastructure. If you don't trust your tools, you're not going to use those tools. And I definitely have some experience with that. You have to trust others to behave responsibly, or trust them to behave responsibility, because that's a good English sentence in this, right? So everyone is here for the same reason. We're here to create and stop tolerating assholes, right? You've all been in a place, I would imagine, where you've worked with an asshole before. We should not tolerate these assholes. And if you're not sure if you're an asshole, you might be one if any of these things are true. Like people who, after they've met with you, they feel oppressed, humiliated, or otherwise worse about themselves, right? Or if you target people less powerful than you. And this is, like, it's a real thing. Look, there's a whole book written about this, the no asshole rule. But it's really interesting if you read this book, like, the effect that having assholes and tolerating assholes within your organization can have. This guy's a super smart engineer, but man, he's a real prick. I don't ever want to be hanging out with him. I don't like to talk to him, but he gets stuff done. No, we should get rid of those people. We should shun the assholes. We're not going to change them. We need to help them identify, maybe we can help them identify themselves as assholes, and maybe that would be enough to change the way they behave, but it's likely that that's not the case, so get rid of them. And so how do you make sure that you're not an asshole? Because maybe now you're thinking, oh, shit, man, he's talking about me. Well, so here's some tips, right? And these are some tips that you can give to the assholes that you work with. Because I know, you all came out to a meetup group tonight. You're like giving up in the evening, so you're not an asshole, likely. But lead with questions, not with statements. Try to understand like the effort that other people have put into things. And this one is definitely hard. This last one here, right? Avoiding the passive-aggressive snark. Clearly, I have trouble with avoiding sarcasm, and so passive-aggressive snarks maybe happen sometimes. And it's okay if like these things happen occasionally, right? That doesn't make you an asshole. What we really care about are the chronic assholes, the people that chronically display this sort of behavior. All right. Well, that was a lot about culture. That's really, I mean, DevOps is really founded in culture. The other thing that's interesting about culture, though, is like my culture isn't your culture, and the culture of my company is not the culture of your company. You need to find the right cultural things that work well in your organization, right? It's certainly not a one-size-fits-all. Do all these things, and then you've got the DevOps, and you're good. Let's talk about automation for a minute. That's another one of my favorite subjects. So here's the problem, right? IT is just going bananas, crazy, just growing. And now skills and the complexity, they're greater than, the scale and complexity are greater than the skills, not the skills and complexity greater than the scale, because that would be fine, right? But no, it's the scale times the complexity is greater than the skills that are available. So we really need to come up with some way to solve this. So back in the day, right, this was what complexity was like. Oh, we needed to add a server, so there are like 20 different things that we need to change to make this server not only part of this infrastructure, but a full player within this infrastructure. Bunch of changes that likely happen manually. I don't know where you are today in your automation efforts, but maybe all this happens manually, and it takes like 4 hours. And the real way that this happens, and I've been there, right, so it's okay to admit this, or at least it's okay for me to admit this, like the way that these 20 changes happen, or I went to the wiki page and I read what are the steps I need to take to get there. And the problem was there are 15 steps on the wiki page, and it takes 20 to make this thing right. And 3 of the ones on the wiki page are wrong, but they don't tell you that they're wrong. They're just wrong, right? And so, like 4 hours, that'd be great. Yeah, no. It's like maybe 4 days sometimes to do that, right? But of course, complexity is growing, and we also now have animated slides. So, whoa, like, holy cow, did you see that happen? That was wild. How am I going to do that in 4 hours or less, following the instructions on the wiki? And if you think that's bad, wait till this animation happens. Boom! Now you're just done, right? So forget it. Complexity, and this is what complexity looks like today. Actually, I don't know. How many of you, like, each one of these boxes would represent a single box in your current infrastructure? Right? All right, so there's 1, maybe 2 people here. Ryan's kind of like, he's actually doing the math, because he doesn't have high, because, yeah, he's like, yeah, kind of got that, right? And on the TI, like, on the whole, maybe you see this many servers easily, right? Yeah. So, crazy. Awesome. So, automation, of course, I work for Ops Code, so Chef can help you solve these automation problems. But again, this isn't a Chef talk. The key thing about this slide is it's animated and blurry in the middle. No, the key thing about it is that it's a process, right? You're not going to wake up one day and be like, boom, all my systems are automated. Even if you use Chef, you're not going to wake up one day and be like, boom, all my systems are automated. It's done. Everything's a push button or a command line, and we're done. But you really need to sort of work out this continuum, and how do you get from bespoke servers, from these handcrafted servers, all the way to a point where you have fully automated infrastructure. And then there's continuous delivery. because holy cow, like DevOps is awesome and it's all this culture and we all get along together and we're going to go to lunch together and have some pizza and I care about what you do, you care about what I do, but what the business cares about is I want to drive change to production faster and faster. And then we talk about continuous delivery. So DevOps as a practice, as a culture, as a way to do your business can help with things like continuous delivery. Some would argue that you can't do continuous delivery if you haven't sprinkled on the DevOps. The business needs these things faster and faster. It needs changes to go out into production. Anyone here still believe that like the best way to make sure that production stays stable is to put a lot of time between releases? Anyone still believe that? Because that's like not the way. Do lots of little releases. A deployment should be like a non-event. It's not like you have a problem when you print T-shirts because you deployed changes to your website. Like that's a bad sign. Continuous delivery starts though with version control. And many of you said you were sysadmins. This is not version control. I repeat, this is not version control. Yes, this has worked for you in the past, and it has worked well for you in the past, but this is bullshit, and you cannot build your business like this anymore. This does not work anymore. All right, so when I say version control, what I really mean is a distributed version control system. And if you read between the lines and really ask my opinion, I'll tell you Git. And then if you say, no, dude, but like, what about Mercurial, or what about Perforce, or what about Subversion? Because those are all good for me too. And I'm like, yeah, you should totally do version control, and you should spell it G-I-T. But it's cool if you want to use something else. That's totally cool. But like, the tool really does help enforce the practices that you have and the culture that you have. So distributed version control system, distributed is key there, and that's why I love Git best. Dependency management, right? So you do not deploy a package that has no dependencies on other packages. How do you solve that within your organization? There's the software configuration, of course, as well as with all of your applications. And then the environments, right? Of course, I know that your test environment is a direct replication of your production environment with all the same resources and everything. So you can truly test in your test environment. I'm sure that's the case. So I don't need to tell you about that. But environments, they're a thing, right? You have a development environment, you have a staging or a test environment, a production environment, pre-prod. Like, I don't know. Sometimes the names of environments drive me kind of batty too. Like staging, or no, this isn't staging, this is test, or this isn't staging, this is pre-prod. And then there's pre-prod, and which is pre-prod like right before prod, or is pre-prod right before prod? I don't know. But you have to have continuous integration also, right? So if you want to get to continuous delivery, you have to have these things in place. You have to have distributed version control. You have to know how you manage your dependencies. You have to solve your software configuration, have environments, have continuous builds of your software, and like build assets. How many of you build Rails apps, right? No? So I used to build Rails apps. Actually, that's kind of a misnomer, right? How many of you build Rails apps? If you raise your hands, I'd call you a liar, because you don't build Rails apps. You just deploy from Git, right? Like, it's just Git pull, and then your app is there. Right? That's not building an app. So, like, put things into packages. No, that's not building an app, dude. Like, I love Capistrano. I made a living doing Capistrano for a while, and I was very happy. But I've seen the light, like packages, they're a thing, right? And we should package all the things. And I've learned the lessons that my forefathers learned. I've now learned them also. and one day my children will learn them again too, right? Continuous integration, of course, build all of your stuff all the time. Execute your tests. Wait a minute, so continuous integration, like there's this other thing that's not here on this list. You have to have automated tests. And these automated tests, like automated tests for your application code, that's good. It's not good enough. If you're automating your infrastructure and your infrastructure code, you need to have automated tests for that as well. Because how do you know that your configuration management or your automation stuff that's going to deploy a new server for you, how do you know that that works? Well, I know it works because I put it in production and I didn't get any alerts, right? We can do better than that. We can do better than that. So here's what a deployment pipeline might look like. Yes, you have a question?
How is alerting not automated testing?
Oh, crap. How's what?
How is alerting not automated testing?
How is right, sure. How is alerting not automating testing? Here's how. So I would say it is, yes, and you absolutely need to have some alerting and monitoring, and like when it comes to infrastructure and like infrastructure code or infrastructure automation, right? There's definitely a blurry line. At what point does this thing that I've written become a monitor versus a test that happens? And I think a lot of it has to do with timing, right? So when does this test get executed? If you don't actually execute any tests until you get to production, which maybe is what you do when you do monitoring, right? I don't do any testing until I get to production, or I don't do any automated testing until I get to production. Can that work for you? Sure. Is that like the way to go, scalable, and like long-term? Is that the right answer? Definitely not. But I think the key point here that I'd like to make is, as operations people, as system administrators, right, we need to learn some best practices from the application guys, from the application team, from the developers, right? They write unit tests. Do you have any unit tests for your infrastructure automation code, right? And hopefully the answer is, yeah, sure I do, dude. I totally do. And you should, right? Do you have integration tests? Do you have functional tests for that? Now, how much time should you spend on monitoring versus how much time should you spend on writing like pre-production tests? This is a debate that I would also happily have with you for hours, especially over beer or scotch. Right, so we want to get to this place where we have this deployment pipeline. The thing here, right, a deployment pipeline is really nothing more than gates and stages, right? So it starts off by you write some code, you submit that code. There is a gate there. Now, maybe that gate is someone has to review that code before it can move forward to the next stage, which is it actually goes into, I don't know, it goes into a deployment, so it goes into a build. And then it hits another test gate, at which point it has to pass that gate before it moves on to the next stage. And the thing is, the other thing that I really want to drive home on this is that you need a deployment pipeline, not just for your applications. We need to, as operations people, we need to start learning again from those developers and bring some of those best practices into the operational work that we do, the automation work that we do. Because automation is, in and of itself, just another software project. Here's the same thing, but like, woo, prettier graphs and lots more like things building on top of each other. Again, I'm not going to. Yeah, exactly. Like, look, there are graphs that prove it. All right, so culture, automation. Let's talk about measurement, because that's the next step in the word CAMS. We should measure everything. Measure everything, like performance metrics, process metrics, people metrics. If you know Ryan, you know that he's like measuring how often he sleeps and what kind of food he eats on a regular basis. And now he's gone crazy nutballs and he said, all right, well, sometimes I'm on call and sometimes I'm not. Let's like join and let's marry this data together. This is the time when I'm on call and this is how much I sleep. And this is when I'm not on call and I'm already asleep because it's after 7, right? So it's totally different. But you can start to like see that stuff. And does that have a real impact on your team? Of course it does. You should measure availability, right? So here's the thing, right? One of the, I guess this is a question for the group. When you think about your applications, do you have a good monitor in place that will tell you definitively up or down on your application? And just as a little hint or a little idea about my opinion on this, something like Pingam, that's not an up or down monitor. Like, that doesn't count, right? Does my website respond to requests? That's not an up or down monitor. Is your application up or is your application down? Can you answer that question effectively with a monitor that you have in place today? I see some, yeah, totally can. I see some people like, dude, that's kind of a hard, like, what do you mean up or down? That's kind of like a hard, we do a lot of, yeah, that's hard. It's hard, right? So you have to get to a place where you have a good up or down monitor. Look at availability. Look, for all you math nerds, here's an equation that will sort out your availability. Just sort out this and you'll know your availability. Here it is again, but the thing that with DevOps, right, and with the new way of thinking about IT, what we've learned is that the mean time between failures doesn't really matter, right? It's your mean time to detect and your mean time to recover or mean time to repair those failures. That's what's important. That's where the trust starts to come in. I start trusting my systems when I know that if there is a failure, I'm going to detect it quickly and I can repair it quickly. Because like the great thing about automation is I can push out a configuration change across the entirety of my infrastructure very quickly. And the shitty part about automation is I can push out a configuration change across the entirety of my infrastructure very quickly, right? So if I don't trust my monitors, if I don't trust that I'm going to detect a failure very, very quickly, and on the other side of that, be able to respond to that very, very quickly, then I'm totally hosed. And actually, that's what I should be focusing on. And failure, how many of you are at Surge? Other than, no. So everyone knows what Surge is, right? And I'm sorry you weren't there. Because Gene Kranz came and he spoke. You all know who he is, right? Like, failure is not an option. We've got to get these dudes back. But frankly, failure is not an if, it is a when. Your systems are going to fail. And how are you going to deal with that? So again, focus on the mean time to diagnose and the mean time to repair. So sometimes you'll see people that do the DevOps wearing t-shirts that look like this, and then you're like, dude, I got you, man. My people, you're doing the DevOps. It's good stuff. So measurement and monitoring is not the same, although they're related, to alerting, right? So what things do you actually need to alert on versus what things should you monitor and what things should you measure? So is CPU usage important enough to measure? Probably important enough to measure, and maybe it's something you want to see a graph of over time. Is it important enough to alert on? I don't know, which side up or down. Should you care about an individual host or server? So if you lose a server in your infrastructure, does that an outage make? I hope the answer is no, right? But maybe it is. Maybe there is that special Snowflake server that, like, everything, this is the linchpin of my environment. If this guy goes down, I'm totally hosed. Are the web servers responding quickly? How many deploys were completed today? Are these things that we should measure? Or are these things that we should alert on? Are customers able to check out? Like, that's probably an important thing to alert on. That's maybe one that gets close to that up or down thing, if you have like a checkout on your site. And if you run a website, right, there are, I don't know if you know this, but there are other types of like software projects out there other than websites. Service availability is greater than server availability. You hopefully don't care as much about the latter and care an awfully lot about the former. So you should measure everything and alert on the important metrics. Because like right now, like I told you, Ryan is measuring his sleep patterns. Wouldn't it be funny if he set off an alert because he wasn't sleeping enough, or because he was getting too much sleep? Like, dude, wake up! You're sleeping too much. That would kind of suck, right? So you need to make sure you're alerting on things. Yeah, that's crazy. And then the other important thing, like monitors and measurements, they're code. Treat them as such. How many of you have configured Nagios before? Yeah. How many of your Nagios configurations are stored in version control repository? All right. How many have always had their Nagios configurations in version control repositories that don't end in .back or .timestamp? Awesome. Awesome. So we got 3 people in the room that win. They win a prize. There are stickers in the back.
But you lose because you're still using Nagios.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. We should drill. Like, how many of you have game days where you bring stuff down intentionally or unintentionally and like see what happens? So also at Surge, one of the guys from the Obama campaign spoke. And he didn't say this at Surge, but I've seen the talk a couple of other times. And so one of the things that they did leading up to the campaign was they did this game day. And what they did was super awesome. The managers sat down, or like the architects or whatever, some leaders on the technology team sat down and said, all right, so we want to do this game day. We want to like screw with everybody. So here's what we're going to do. These are the systems we're going to bring down, the order in which we're going to bring them down, and like how long we'll leave them down until, like if nobody notices, maybe we'll bring this thing back up and whatever. So they had this whole playbook. Well, here's the thing. They're like, this is our first game day, so I tell you what, here's a copy of the playbook. Here's a copy of the playbook. Here's a copy. They gave it to all their developers and all their operations people, right? They're like, all right, dudes, coming on Saturday, we're doing this game day. You have a copy of the game book, right, or the playbook. This is what's going to happen. So they all arrived on Saturday mornings. Developers and operations are all like, at the ready to go. Things are going to fall over. And the managers took the playbook and they like tossed it out. And they're like, all right, now we're really going to fuck with them. And started bringing shit down in completely random order, completely not what the playbook said. And so just to see the reaction time, right? You have to do this, right? Netflix has the Chaos Monkey, which can go out and just like randomly start shutting down stuff. In fact, they have the whole simian army, right? So like the Chaos Monkey, Netflix has shared a lot of this. Like the Chaos Monkey is awesome and helps them sort out when a system fails, like what the reaction is. But the one that the folks like better than the Chaos Monkey is the latency monkey, right? Not what happens when that service fails. What happens when that service takes 7 times, 100 times longer than usual to respond? Like, how do you react to that? That's a more interesting question, and certainly a place where they ran into more problems and things that they wanted to solve. So you should totally drill. You should use, like, these aren't even real guns, but they're throwing them up in the air, and it's cool.
You're saying real guns, live ammo better?
Absolutely, right? Like the Chaos Monkey would be like, no, that's a fake gun. You can do whatever you want with that, right?
Set it on fire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the S in CAMs. Let's talk about the sharing in CAMs. So internally, you need across development and operations, and in fact, like I also think that DevOps is kind of bad in that it focuses on development and operations, right? If you go back to that slide at the beginning where I asked you how many of you are sysadmins, developers, how many of you are business people, you all are helping drive the business. You're all business people and need to have an understanding of what the business needs and what the customers are after. So even to take DevOps and put that focus only on development and operations, like that's good, but it's really about the entire operation of your business. So internally, you need to share and celebrate your successes. Share and celebrate your failures, your metrics, your ideas, your code. But what about when it comes to external? What do you share externally? Actually, you should share your successes, your failures, your metrics, your ideas, your code. You should do all of this. You should share as much as you possibly can externally. Because you know what? You're going to learn as much, or you're going to learn more by sharing than by keeping all of that close to the vest, right? If you follow, say, GitHub or look at Heroku or any of these places that will publish their postmortems, this is what happened, this is what we did in reaction. Like Heroku had a really good one a while back when Mark Imbriaco was there, or maybe it was GitHub, I don't know. Either one, Mark Imbriaco wrote this postmortem and he was like, man, we totally figured out exactly what the thing was, and it was this thing, and we pounded on this thing, and pounded on this thing, and pounded on this thing, and then we realized it's that thing over there. Fuck, that sucked, right? And it led to a longer outage, but now we can all learn from that. And then, like, 2 weeks later, guess what? The same sort of thing happened, and so, ooh, it was kind of ugly. But whatever, you should get out there and share that. You'll help everyone in the room and everyone in the industry get better. You should also do things like go to conferences. Like Serge was down the street and it was $400 or something, and I bet Eric would have given you a free pass. I mean, I know it's not just like you, it's probably like your boss, and like it's not the $400, it's the 2 days off, and National Harbor, man, I wanted to go to Baltimore, because that's where it's at. But, it's cool. Read blogs, papers, articles, write them, share, listen to podcasts. Like, the idea one of the key ideas of DevOps is get out there and learn, right? Share your experiences, make sure that you're continuously improving yourself and your thought process and so forth. So DevOps is CAMs, culture, automation, management, and sharing. There are also, like, in line with this come a bunch of DevOps practices, like value chain mapping, like sorting out how does stuff move from some product manager's brain into production? What are all the steps along the way? How can we minimize handoffs and really streamline that process? And one of the failings, I think, frankly, of Agile is that, like, Agile as a software development methodology really focused on that development process. And it had all of this local optimization for developers, made developers' lives really, really easy. But the net result was that operations became this even stronger bottleneck, right? So Who cares if you can build a whole bunch of cool stuff really, really fast? If we can't get it into production, it doesn't matter. You haven't actually built anything. Virtualization, running your stuff on VMs, running your stuff off in the cloud. Configuration management, of course, and automation. When you have this stuff right, you get to this place where you have disposable infrastructure. I do remember the days of handcrafting servers. I also remember the morning I woke up and was like, hey, the next configuration change that I make to my production system is going to start with a Git commit. Like, I was very happy that day. And I, fully embraced this disposable infrastructure, almost to a fault. Actually, I'll tell you a little story where it was, in fact, to a fault. So we had this one application, and it was fully automated. And if we needed more capacity, we could click a button, and more servers would spin up. And here's that application. Well, so it was great. It was one of our first applications that we had fully automated. We noticed one day that one of the servers in this queue or in this pool was really performing terribly, right? We're like, service availability above all. Just shoot that server in the head. We're going to deploy a new one. And we totally did that, and then everything was better, and it was awesome, and we were high fives and everything. And then, a couple days later, we came in, and this one server in that pool was going really, really bad. We're like, cool, man, I know how to solve that. We're going to kill that server. We're going to deploy a new one, and it was great. After a couple of weeks of doing this, we started to realize that when we deployed a new server, 17 days later, it got really, really slow. And we shot it in the head and deployed a new one. We started to recognize this pattern. And we realized then, man, automation sucks. One day, my job is going to be to come into the office, kill a bunch of servers, hit a bunch of buttons to provision new ones, and then my 8 hours are going to be up, and I'm going to go home. Right? I'm not going to get anything productive done. So disposable infrastructure is great, but don't forget, problems still exist. And so then we said, crap, we actually have to figure out why these things are falling over like this. And it took us maybe a day. We found the root cause. We solved that, and then we moved on. And then we were like, yeah, disposable infrastructure and automation, they are totally awesome. We should totally be embracing those. Some more DevOps practices. Put your developers on a call. You're responsible for your own uptime. Developers love to hear this. Trust me. They're like, yeah, man, hand me that pager. Give it to me. System administrator coders, right? So those of you that said you were system administrators, how many of you are coders or software developers, right? Yeah, those of you that are like, nope, not me, or like this. You are coders. You just have shitty tools, right? And so there are better tools out there. Maybe Chef is one of them. So, yeah, man, it was awesome-ish.
So big in this
Yeah, we'll talk later. All right, so the other thing that I've found great success with is going to the development team and helping them redefine when something is done. So it was definitely the case in my past where the developer was done when they did a Git, when they did an SVN commit. They're like, yep, dude, I'm done. That's it. I'm going home for the day, right? I convinced them to get to Git, but then they were like, all right, cool, Git push, now I'm done. And so you really have to redefine what done means, right? Committed to version control is a step along the way to being done, but the tests are passing. Is it deployed to production? Is it monitored in production? And who owns each one of these things, right? Is it the developer that owns the yes to all of these questions? Customers are getting value out of this thing? I'm not sure, and you probably in your organization your developers probably fall somewhere along this continuum. Hopefully they at least meet this first criteria to call something done. Because if your infrastructure code isn't in version 1, application code isn't either, yeah, go study up on Git. Blameless postmortems, they're also another thing, right? Failure is going to happen. What we need to look at is the mean time to detect and the mean time to recover. We need to get together in a room like this and talk about what happened when the failure happened. You should include all stakeholders. So when I ran postmortems at Custom Ink, we invited the entire company. We had an outage. Everyone in the company, you can come to this 1-hour postmortem that we're going to have. Your attendance is completely optional unless you were like directly involved in the troubleshooting and resolution of that. But this is open to everyone in the company. Were it like at convenient times, or if the office was conveniently located, I'd have been like, yeah, dude, work next door, come on over, you can help us postmortem off this outage. That's cool. So in your postmortem, you should agree on the timeline, like what happened when. And one of the best ways to be able to agree on the timeline is to enforce, like during incident management, to enforce something like a group chat tool as the place where you put in everything that you're going to do, whether that's HipChat or IRC or Campfire or whatever. This will give you a log of like, oh, I think it's the, I think just the web server needs to be restarted, so I'm going to go restart the web server. How many of you have done that and then come to find out that like, nope, that was completely wrong, and now things are even worse because you just restarted the web server, right? That happens all the time. Let's agree on a timeline. Let's have that sort of lined out. Identify the conditions that led to the failure. So what made you think that restarting the web server was going to solve that? And that's not a like, dude, you're so stupid. Why would you think that? It's a, no, seriously, why was that a thing that occurred to you? Probably the answer is, well, I did that last time and it worked, right? And just like that GitHub example where we're counting on this issue and, oh, it was this thing over here. And the next time something like that happened, they probably started over here, and this time it was that guy, right? But you need to understand the conditions that led to that failure. Maybe the dude was just really tired and he accidentally hit RM-RF star /star, you know, whatever. Another really important thing, I don't know how your operations team manages their work, but if you use a ticketing system at all, during the postmortem, create the tickets. This really changed our behavior when we started doing this in postmortems. We would create tickets. The way it used to be is we'd all be like, yeah, well, we should do this differently, we should do this differently, we should do this differently. Cool, it's time for lunch, let's go to lunch. And then 2 weeks later, we have the same outage for the same reason. And we're like, yeah, we should have done that differently, that differently. All those things we identified last time. We know what it is, so we'll just commit to fixing those. Now it's time to go to lunch again. We never actually did that work, right? So we moved to a place where during the postmortem, you don't leave the postmortem until the tickets have been created. And then further, you get the business and everyone else on the team to buy into the fact that these tickets take priority over new work. And you set an explicit deadline for resolving these tickets. Because the last thing you want is you have an outage today, you do this postmortem, you know exactly what the root cause is, or the root causes are, because there's probably not a root cause. And then 2 weeks later, you haven't done anything to address any of those shortcomings, and you have an outage again, and it's for the same reasons. Like, that sucks worse than anything else. So create those tickets and give priority to those tickets, and get everyone in your organization to buy in, like, absolutely, that is the right thing to do. Or if it's not, we need to have that conversation and get those business justifications or whatever. And also, when it comes to DevOps, don't forget about your extended family, because there is shadow IT. I don't like calling them shadow IT, I just call them the extended family, because in-laws are better than the shadow IT group, right? So think about like infrastructure as a service providers, like AWS, right? They're part of your IT organization. You may not pay them a salary, you pay them some money, right? But you also don't have real control over whether or not they have an outage. You need to plan for that. Platform as a service, software as a service. You likely use, or your company likely uses something for Salesforce automation, like Salesforce.com, or something for email marketing, like MailChimp or Constant Contact or something like this. What happens when those things go down? You're like, no, dude, I just pay them, so I don't have to think about that. Yeah, that's cool, but you might need to think about that. You might need to think about that. All right, so just wrapping up. DevOps, it's this cultural and professional movement. DevOps is not a tool. It's not a job that you have. It's, you know, Chef is awesome, but it's not a DevOps tool. You don't buy the Chef, and then you've got DevOps, and now we can like all celebrate because we did that. Yeah, exactly. Check it off, right? Check it off the list. DevOps is the new way of IT. It is the way forward with IT. So you know the old saying, the future is already here. It's just unevenly distributed, right? That DevOps is already here, and it's unevenly distributed. Also, on the Food Fight show yesterday, we talked about DevOps with a guy named Andrew Clay Schaefer, who's been with the DevOps movement for a long time. And one of my favorite quotes of his from yesterday was, "You get the DevOps you deserve." And so, just like let that sink in for a minute. And there's a lot of truth in that. Continuous delivery. So DevOps can help you on your path or help you on your journey to continuous delivery. Continuous delivery is what the business wants. Not only is it what the business wants, it's what your customers want. Not only is it what they want, it's what they expect, right? And for better or worse, like consumer technology is teaching the business that continuous delivery is a thing and it's achievable. And if your phone can update itself on a continual basis without you taking any action, why can't my website or my other application, my insert your favorite application or the most hated application here, do that same thing? Why not? The business knows that it can. The business people know that it can. The customers know that it can. So I have some essential reading, some suggested reading for you. It's highly suggested because I called it essential. The Phoenix Project. If you haven't read this, I think it's a great read. If you want to go to like the source, read The Goal by Ellie Goldratt from like the 80s, and it's all about manufacturing. But if you want to put an IT spin on the same story, read The Phoenix Project. It has this great quote here about everyone will know IT and will know the IT systems in the future. Most people that I've talked to that have read The Phoenix Project, so here's the real, and I'm sorry, Gene Kim, if you're listening. Gene Kim is one of the authors. Here's the real story of me and The Phoenix Project, another little personal journey with Nathan, because those are fun. So I was at DevOps Days in New York City at the beginning of this year, and Gene Kim was there, and through one of the sponsors had like 100 books or whatever that he was signing and giving out. So I got a signed copy of his book. I'm like, great, thanks, Gene, and I put it on my bookshelf. I'm like, yeah, I'm never going to read that because you can't read the subtitle here, but it is a novel about IT, DevOps, and making your business win. Like a novel about IT, yeah, that's a great thing for me to have signed by the author and put on my bookshelf. Like, I don't care. Right, that's cool. Gene, I love you. I'll talk to you all the time, but I'm not going to read your book, right? And then this weird thing happened. Like, people were coming up to me like, hey, have you read The Phoenix Project? Because, oh my God, it's awesome. You should totally read The Phoenix Project. And then I had other people coming up to me and saying, like, I want to get in touch with Gene Kim and I want him to anonymously dropship The Phoenix Project to my CTO or to my CIO because they need to wake up and start, like, listening to the things that are happening here. And then I was, so then I like, fine. I gave into the internet pressure, right? Like the Twitters were getting to me, and I said, fine, I'll read your damn book. And I picked it up and I read it, and it was kind of awesome, right? And then, like my favorite part about the Phoenix Project. So the way that it starts off, it's about this auto parts supply manufacturer, right? So not an IT company. This is not about Facebook, right? This is about an auto parts manufacturer. And the first third of the book or so, which you can get for free, is an exploration about like how crappy their IT process is and how it is destroying their business, right? And that's what Gene gives away for free. So you're like, oh man, this is a complete failure. This company's going under. But you know it's a novel, so it's going to have a happy ending, right? I call it the after-school special of DevOps, right? You know it's going to turn out okay in the end, so after you've read this first third, you're like, man, this company's totally hosed. You totally are willing to pay the $20 or whatever it is to read the second two-thirds. But anyhow, I was talking to a customer of ours who manages an IT department, and I mentioned the Phoenix Project. He said, man, I hate that book. I said, whoa, this is the first negative comment I've heard about the book. Let me hear more. Let me know more. He said, yeah, so I'm at work, and all day long I'm stressed about like this transformation that we have to make. If we don't make this transformation, our business is totally going to fail. And then I go home, and I have some time with the family, and then I get ready for bed, and I pick up the book to read it. And now I'm reading the same thing, and like these characters, like if they don't change, it's going to fail, and it just brings back all the stress from work for him right before he goes to bed. So he hated that part. But then he got to the end, and he's like, yeah, we can totally do it. So, wow, so for someone who hates the book, like totally read the book. And it took me a month to read it or 2 to read it. Web operations, if If you've read this, awesome. If not, it's a little dated. It's like from 2010, but it's a collection. Yeah, it's dated, man. It's like totally old school. It's all this old school thought on how you do web operations. It's the other really nice thing about it, if you don't like to read, is it's actually just a collection of essays. So it's like 10 or 15 pages, and then you're done with that one, and you can put the book away for a couple of months, which is cool. And if you buy it and bring it here, and Theo's here, like he has a chapter in there, or an essay in there, so you can get him to sign it, and you can say, well, signed by one of the authors, and then it like will be worth 50 cents more on eBay. Other essential reading, continuous delivery. This is probably of the books I'm recommending the hardest one to read because it's pretty dense and it's long and it's not a novel. It's not fluffy like the Phoenix Project. It's like real world stuff, but there's a lot of abstract ideas in there. But you can totally learn a lot from that. Building a DevOps Culture is a quick, easy read from a colleague of mine, Mandy Walls. It talks a lot about the culture of DevOps, which is cool, and you can probably get it for free. All right, that's pretty much it. By the way, if you want to learn more about Chef, I don't have, I'm not teaching this one. There's a 2-day fundamentals class next week in DC. It's all about using Chef to manage Windows environments, which will either make you be like, woo, Windows environments on Chef, and I can automate those with Chef, that's pretty cool. Or it'll be like, Windows Shutter, I don't want to even go near that. I don't want to stay out of the city for next week, and that's cool too. So that's what it's all about. It's next Tuesday and Wednesday. If you really want to go, like talk to me afterwards, and I'm sure we can make you a pretty easy deal. Like the cost of the class, I can reduce it for you, potentially significantly. But I cannot reduce it more than $1,000 because that's the list price of the class. All right, that's it. Thank you. What questions do you have? All right, we're all ready to DevOps? All right, Eric.
Can you share a story or an anecdote or advice about your experience getting DevOps culture buy-in?
Yes. How do you get the DevOps culture buy-in?
When your COO isn't from IT.
When your COO isn't from IT, right? So you have this COO who isn't from IT, and how do you get them to buy into it? So I can't say that I have a great story and an anecdote and a win for you. But what I will say is that I think that if you are the lone sysadmin who's like, DevOps is the way I save this business, and you go to town and you do the DevOps, like, you're not actually helping anybody. It's not, and the short answer is, like, you need that executive buy-in to actually make real progress when it comes to DevOps. When it comes to, we're talking about potentially significant cultural change within your organization. Both the way culture works, the way your IT works, you cannot do that alone. You need the executives to be on board. Can you make small, incremental changes that make your day-to-day life better without executive buy-in? Absolutely. Is that going to save your business? Probably not, right? So you have to have executive buy-in. I think that it is probably one of the next most interesting things that's going to happen within DevOps, because you have a lot of us practitioners that are like, yeah, like, I get it, I understand. How do I get my executives to buy in? How do I bring them along? I think, a book like the Phoenix Project is a good way to start. Maybe, maybe your executives or your leadership team has some situational blindness. Like, no, we're making incremental improvements all the time, so we're always getting better. But you're not really transforming, and that can be an issue. So probably a little bit less than you wanted. Like, there wasn't a big payout there. But some real talk.
It's the strategy.
Yeah.
That's what counts.
Yeah.